You guys, I have a funny story to tell you. Apparently, there's an AA meeting that got canceled. How does this happen? Drunks. Actual drunks. Drunks that don't want to be sober. But I was told that a very drunk person showed up at a meeting and they were going to drive home and the cops were called, which is fucking stupid, I'll tell you that. Like, they should never involve the cops unless it's absolutely necessary. But because the cops got involved, the church doesn't want to have shit to do with recovering alcoholics anymore, which I think is like one of the lamest things I've ever heard. I would look at that as signifying that more meetings need to happen. But the fact that they don't want the controversy is proof that they're not actually followers of Jesus Christ, you know, because Jesus Christ was all about them controversy. But I told this other dude, I was like, we showed up at the church and like nothing was happening. And I told him, like, man, plenty of these mics are canceled because the mics are typically hosted at a place of business, whether that place of business be a bar or a coffee shop or a weed bar. I don't know if weed bars still exist. I should look that up. But yeah, like, I can understand why an open mic, especially a stand-up comedy open mic, will get canceled. But a recovery group, that's crazy. But to me, that's further proof that religious people are fucking shitheads that don't actually want to help anybody. And you know, sometimes it shocks me that I'm religious, but at the same time, like, I really love my church. And I love the sacraments, and I love the traditions. You know, I'm not a very traditional person, so being Orthodox is really the closest I'll ever get to any of that shit. But what's really cool about Jesus is that Jesus is for everybody, and anybody can take part in the HolyEucharist if they're committed to it. And so I look at that as like an opportunity for me to get closer to the Father, you know, that's literally the whole point. But you know, a lot of people don't understand Christianity, just like a lot of people don't understand alcoholism and addiction. And you can't expect that from the fallen world, because the fallen world, you know, most of the people that live in the world are pretty stupid and corrupt, and you know, they've been corrupted by everything around them being a lie, and so it's like if they're not acting very Christian, or they don't care enough about, you know, a group of people that clearly needs help, because, you know, they don't do any research on those types of people. You know, I mean, why do you think I've done so much research on mental health? Why do you think I'm so well versed in these subjects? It's not because, like, I really wanted to be. It's because, you know, my country just doesn't give a shit about people like us. I mean, most of the people on medication don't need to be subdued. You know, they're not in a psychotic state. They're not so depressed that they're not, you know, able to pick up their feet and get out of bed. You know, like, a lot of people just don't want to go to work, or they're just depressed by the state of the world. That's not actual depression, you know? But, you know, the anxiety's rough. I understand the anxiety. But you got to get your breathing under control, and you also got to understand what's causing it. And if you keep using Band-Aids and distractions and people, places, and things to run away from yourself, it's like yourself is still going to be there. And if you ever come back to yourself, you're probably going to be in a way worse condition than you were before, because of all this crap that you put in your body and your mind, and all these lies that you've subjected yourself to in relation to this world. You know, it's unfortunate. But I guess that's why, like, I look for truth anywhere I can find it. Sometimes the truth's in stand-up comedy, not too much these days, but it's still out there every once in a while. I spew it more than anybody else. Not to gloat, but that's never going to be one to gloat about, you know? It's really not. The world is so corrupt that you got to question people that claim they stand for the truth, you know, because they could very well be working for the Jewish cabal, you know? Of course they're working for the Jewish cabal. Of course. Yeah, man. Like, take everything with a teeny tiny itsy bitsy eeny meeny microscopic, practically non-existent grain of salt. Okay? Do that so that you don't get misguided, because there are plenty of people out here that claim that they speak for God and all that, and they don't act very Christ-like, you know. That's why Christ said, you'll know them by their fruits. So, I know that this channel is pretty offensive. I know that I talk a bunch of shit on here, but that is part of the art form of comedy. Okay? And I do believe that I have the Spirit of God, which means, you know, God wants me to say these things, and if I'm wrong, I correct myself. Well, He corrects me first, and then I correct myself. So, I think that it's really important that people don't get their head lodged too far up their own asshole to the extent that they can't, you know, smell their own bullshit. I can definitely smell mine. It's unfortunate. Sometimes I wish I couldn't smell it, you know, that I could enjoy self-indulgent behavior even more. But, anyway. I gotta put my groceries away. I have the tendency to just sit on my car for a prolonged period of time, but I really can't do that with frozen shrimp in the back seat. So anyway, I'm gonna go. Don't you find that funny? Drunks kicked out of an AA meeting because of drunks.